There are folks in our community, in our neighborhoods, in our families, in our country that wanted to believe that Barack Obama, because he was a black man, was other. He was outside of us. And so anything that would confirm that and satisfy that itch that you had that you otherwise couldn't reconcile, you latched on to like a bitch and you just wouldn't let it go. And that's why it stuck. And I remember a conversation I had with Donald Trump in 2013. We met in his office and he wanted to do some things. And I said, well, look, why don't you do an op-ed on the economy? You're a businessman. Let's do an op-ed on the economy. You talk about how you would shape the economy and da 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 da. And he wasn't even. This wasn't even presidential aspiration stuff. None of that conversation was in play. This was just his wanting to figure out how he could, connect narratively to what was going on in the country. And I told him, I said, but the one thing you have to do in order for that to work is you have to drop this birtherism shit because it doesn't work. It's just not, it's first off, it's racist. Second off, it's not true. And I went through the laundry list of things. He said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. A number of people have been telling me that. And yeah, I really just want to want to focus on the economy. I'm on the train home, Bill, get a phone call from Trump and he says, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to stick with the birtherism because it works. Because it works. And he realized,
Michael, I have made the decision. I'm going to keep lying.
Yes, I've made the decision. I'm going to keep lying because it works. And the reason it works is because we believe it. And the reason we believe it is because we want it to be true. And that's how a TikTok, Twitter story about J.D. Vance and his couch takes off. Because people actually believe that about him, right? And so it's not just the one side, it's the other. So Bill had asked me to his class, and I was sharing with them the story about being an RNC chairman and the messaging that I was asked to do as national chairman. And the one thing that's very true, folks, is that the job is kind of cookie cutter in the sense that everybody wears a uniform, right? They all have the dark suit, the white shirt, the red or blue tie. That wasn't me. I got criticized because I wore a light purple shirt one time. I wore stripes. I had these wild colored ties. People freaked out. You should have seen the looks on their faces the day I showed up at a National Press Club presser with a maroon colored suit, black shirt, black tie. Oh man, people were pissing in their pants. But that's so you got the uniform. Then you got the uniformity of message, which we were talking about before, Bill, where you here are the talking points, right? Here's the list of things I need you to say. Okay, now we all just part 1, part 2, part 3. So they came in and gave me, I was doing a speech, and in the speech, there was a section in which I'm talking about Barack Obama, and I'm talking about the fact that he wasn't born here, the birtherism bullshit, and leveling up these lies about Barack Obama. And I'm sitting there looking at this speech, and I'm looking at, I'm like, y'all want me to go read this? And I finally just look and say, y'all know I'm black, right? I can't go out and say this shit to people. I got to go home tonight. My Starbucks is in a black community. I don't go to the white neighborhood to get coffee. I get it across the street from my home. I'm going to be standing in line with a whole bunch of black folks going to reading the Washington Post. I just said this about Barack Obama not being an American. How the hell you think I'm going to get some coffee? Right. And it was this idea. They were like, well, what do you mean? I was like, why are we saying this is not true? I'm not perpetuating a lie. And more importantly, I'm not taking out another black man like that. I said, no, that's just not how this is going to work. Needless to say, that communications director didn't last long. But the reality of it is, anybody else in that role would have rolled out with those talking points and would have spewed that lie about Barack Obama from the pulpit of the RNC. and made it gospel for the followers across the country, the rank and file Republicans. And that is a big part of the art of political lying, is not just the formation and crafting of the lie, but it's also the convincing of the lie, telling of the lie to get others to believe the lie. Saying you have to do it in such a way, and you have to have words artfully chosen, by the way, that make it that much more real. So people don't go, well, that doesn't sound right. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I think this is an example, and I have a few in the book where you really see when lies are so calculated. When, it's not like, and there are some lies that it's like spur of the moment, like I'm just going to lie right now. And I think Donald Trump does that a lot. He
Right.
did it. He did it this week. He was in Asheville, and he made the decision to repeat the lie about how the federal government is, not giving people the
Yeah,
aid they need.
right.
So, and I think that's just a spur of the moment. It's not like that's scripted. But but when there's a scripted lie like that, to me, that's really something. That it's like somebody sat down, paused, and wrote it. And like that's really calculated.
But it's happening all the time now. It's happening all the time now. Whether it's J.D. Vance in his speeches, it's Donald Trump in his speeches, that scripted part, and then that opens up the door for him to go down rabbit holes unforeseen to mankind. You listen to Senate candidates, the Josh Hawleys and others out there standing in the well of the Senate lying. It's now part of the script, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
it's as
totally.
easy as breathing.
The one story in the book that I found a hope in, your Bulwark colleague, Tim Miller, is like you, someone who refused to lie. He was, well, after a bit. So he was working for the Romney campaign in 2012, and he had been put up before the cameras to lie about this thing called Orca, which was a
Yes.
computerized
Yeah.
handheld, like as an app that tracked the get out the vote effort by the Romney campaign, and it was a complete failure. And the thing just crashed and burned. But Tim had to go out and sit before TV cameras and say, "Oh, the thing's working fine," and he was
Right.
like pulling it up on his phone, pretending, "Oh, it's looking good. Mitt's gonna win. Oh, this precincts in Colorado." And he was just lying and lying. And finally, he's like, "I can't do this anymore. I feel awful. I hate my life." And so finally, he just goes to his boss in the Romney campaign, and he's like, "I'm done. I can't lie anymore." And so
Yeah.
I just really admire that, that he. But when you dig back, like you can find, I found like in Politico, like Tim Miller says the thing's working great.
Right. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not that then leads to, why aren't there more repercussions for this? And what? Let's open up the side door and really let the funk into the conversation. Social media and the role that social media plays in reinforcing the lie itself, which probably has a hand in why there aren't more repercussions.
right. I think the answer to that, Michael, is it's up to us as voters. Like we can decide if we care about this. If we go to our elected officials and say, "Hey, you're lying about this. That really bothers me." They will get a message after a while. It's like a restaurant. You get bad service, you complain to the manager. Eventually, the manager's going to be like, "Hey, I keep getting complaints about bad service. Maybe I need to make the restaurant better." And I think politicians get a message after a while. The problem, like we talked about earlier, is that there aren't enough people who care about these things because the politicians live in these protected bubbles. And the one other thing that has disappeared is there's less moments for accountability for these
Hmm.
guys.
Hmm.
They don't have as many town halls anymore. They won't agree to debates. There's less availability to the news media. So, and I think journalists need to ask about this. Like, hey, you lied about that. What's the deal? And so, but they're few
And
and
why
far.
can't they? And why can't they just say that? I mean, this is the part I watch a presser whenever they happen with Donald Trump, and he will say something, and I just want the reporter to go, "Excuse me, Mr. President, that is a lie, and here are the facts." So
Right.
why are you lying to people about that? Here are the facts.
Um,
Why?
you know,
I mean, look, because if you got an asymmetrical player in the game, you got to play the game asymmetrically. You cannot stand on conventional wisdom, nor can you stand on conventional practice, meaning you can't treat this bitch like he's the president of the United States because he's not in that form, in that capacity any longer. And so, this idea, he's not George Bush and Barack Obama, in that they are still respectful of the institution that they once were a part of, and adhere to the common understanding of the role they should play as a former president, meaning they're not having offline conversations with Vladimir Putin. They're not out here telling people that, Haitians are eating your cats and your dogs. So why does the press not do that? I'm sure there's some editor somewhere scratching their head going, oh my God, no, don't do that. But at the same time, that's how you break the cycle, because I'm just wondering, how do you make political lying unpopular and unacceptable? Someone has got to call it out. Other politicians doing it doesn't work. You know why? Because no one believes them.
right. No, I'm with you, and I'd love to see more of it. I think one, we this is not a useful exercise with Trump. Even Fox tried it over the weekend, and and he was like, they challenged him on eating dogs and cats, and he was like, I don't know, I read it somewhere, which interestingly is a different answer than he gave in the
Any
debate
perform. So
when he
then the
said that,
question is, Mr. President, precisely where did you read it?
right.
Who wrote it? Who did someone in your office give you this? Where did you get that? And I
And
mean, that's the level of the way the game needs to be played, I think, in order to break the stranglehold that the lie has over the truth.
and haven't you read the 200 debunks that have been done about this that have indicated that you're lying? And yeah, I'd love to see a really good examination of Trump where he is questioned repeatedly about his lying, but that really hasn't happened. Time Magazine tried it some years ago, but really hasn't happened in the sort of um, detail that it
Right.
needs.
So
Um, but I'm
you
with you. I mean, I'd love to see that for all politicians.
I would too. I really wish they would. Look, I remember when I was a candidate running for the lieutenant governorship, when I was running for comptroller back in 1998, the Senate in 2006. The press was pretty damn dogged coming after me. If I mischaracterized something, they were all up in my grill about it. And yeah, part of it was I was a Republican in a very liberal bastion here in Maryland with a very, left-leaning press corps. Fine, I get that, understand it. But the tenacity of following the truth and the holding the politician accountable for the truth, in my estimation, it all went to shit in 2015 and 16 when Donald Trump showed up and they realized this boy is bringing in the cash. Because I know people who would, send Donald Trump a text in the middle of a show to get him on the air. He'd come on and pop, there he is, right? Just dive bomb in. I knew we had turned a corner when the press would meet the press. The venerable Meet the Press did its interview because Donald Trump didn't want to come on and do it live in the studio like every other presidential candidate. He said, I would call in. He called in on Meet the Press and they accepted that shit. I would have been, nope, sorry, guess what? You just don't come on Meet the Press. But they wanted the story so bad because he was so good for ratings. He was such an entertainer. You never know what he was going to say next. Ooh, let's sit here with bated breath. And that is the opening, in my view, with the press. and they have not recovered. And then this mofo gets up and becomes president and calls them all liars and fake newsmakers after all of that.
I know it's troubling. Well, I do think any day we the media can get aggressive and start questioning not just him but all politicians, and start asking them about lying, start challenging them about lying, and turn the tide on this, because the media has incredible power to question them and hold them accountable, even in the current state of the media. So I think you're right. I think we could do more, and we really need to.